I was gonna say it's recording. I think it just said it.
It just, and I just said, got it. So we're good to roll.
Awesome. So Johnny Holiday of RUFF MAJIK, thank you for taking time out of your evening to talk. It's nice to talk again.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a while. I think the last time we spoke face to face was probably somewhere around 2020.
Yeah, I think it was 2020. I think it was 2021. But yeah, it was after Devil's Cattle for sure.
Yeah.
This looks really washed out. This is water, by the way. It's not milk. I'm not drinking a gallon of it.
I was just about to say.
I'm not. I looked at the.
I've never
I saw
seen
the
someone
thing.
just chug a bottle of milk.
It's not what I'm doing. It's not yet. It's not that time of day.
What time is it over there, actually?
It is 1. Well, it's about 1:15.
So. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's right. It's about 7:15 where we are. So yeah, you're about 6 hours or whatever.
Well, let me say again that I appreciate you taking the time to chat then, because at 7:15, all I want to do is like fucking go to bed. So thank you.
I get that. Well, look, I have nothing going on Mondays. If we weren't having this chat, I was probably going to be binging some weird horror movies. It's, was one of those two options.
Weird horror movies, you say? That's actually perfect, because you've got this record, and there's a lot of like kind of weird horror sample stuff all throughout it, except for the high flying world of riff management, which I do want to talk about.
We'll get to that.
Yes, but since Elektrik Ram has there's just a ton of shit going on with this record. I don't know any other way to say it. There's a lot in there. It is fucking packed. It's an album with a story. Tell me the story.
Okay, is that where we're getting off from? You didn't want to go into the horror movie things first.
No, not that first. It's in the notes for later, but not first. Give me the broad overview first, and then we'll go in.
All right. So we're gonna hit it hard for right from the get-go, which is fine, but it's intense. So strap in.
All right, that's what we're here for. Let's do
it. All right. So we started with the essence of Elektrik Ram, probably just after the Devil's Cattle, right? Partially, we started recording some music to it, tracking guitars and all that kind of stuff. But that was like at the butt end of 2020. And idea in my head at the point was, sick, we're just going to be able to pump out another album just after Devil's Cattle like we usually did, right? And I don't know if you've noticed, but it's been 3 fucking years. So obviously it didn't go that way. So what happened in between where we started tracking music, but not lyrics, because that at the point it was the first time I decided, okay, I'll do lyrics after the fact because I feel confident in my lyrical abilities. So I think I can make it work. What happened in between there is I had a complete mental breakdown. Entirely so. Which is, I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but it's always, I do like to chuckle at myself sometimes in that regard. Things went downhill, and they went downhill properly. Ended up in me getting admitted as well, but only at the end of 2021 did I end up getting committed. And it was a problem way before that. I just hadn't realized, because I read a quote once where it said, can a decaying mind properly assess its own decay? And the answer is no. Right. You have no idea what's happening.
Yes.
So that's what ended up happening.
Fair.
So a lot of things went down. I was going down I'll give you the full diagnosis as well. I'm not shy about this stuff, and I actually think it's important for people to speak about it.
100% agree. Yes.
Yeah. When I was admitted, eventually, they admitted me for a severe case of agoraphobia, which is just you know what agoraphobia is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that stemmed from PTSD that I had picked up in throughout my life, right? A lot of things had happened, and it seemed that COVID as such, it's not a COVID album, by the way, I just need to get that out of the way. But that was like the final trigger that just kind of made things not work in here properly. So yeah, so it was due to some PTSD. A lot of weird things happened. Like me and our bassist Jimmy, like we the two of us have unfortunately been in the instance where we have escaped death more than one time, right? So it's not unfortunate that we had survived, it's just unfortunate that we had to deal with that thing more than one time. So that's where the PTSD came from. And you know, is what it is. You leave it untreated for forever, or you do self-medicate, but you self-medicate with booze and all the other things to just try and make it work. And then one day your brain is just like, no, that's not enough. Or in fact, not only not enough, it's wrong. It's the wrong way to handle it.
Right. It's like, oh, it was a good try. It was a good try, but no.
Yeah. Good job, but not entirely.
I have no idea, but we're recording again, so
okay, cool.
Where when last we left off, the self-medicating with booze, etc., was not working.
It was not working. And I hadn't realized it was not working. And it's one of those things where the people around you realize things are spiraling out of control, but you're not on top of it, obviously.
Yes.
And then
it is very hard to find objectivity when you're in crisis.
It is.
It's really hard to step back and yeah.
And then eventually when it clicked in, I think it was a phone call from my mother. She's all the way over in Scotland. And she phoned and she was like, listen, I've spoken to Annie, which is my wife, and I've spoken to your mother-in-law as well. And they said, it's bad now. Something's wrong. And I hadn't not on purpose, that I hadn't listened to them beforehand. It's just one of those mental block kind of things, you know? And then I was like, okay, fair enough. Probably let's try to speak to someone. And when I did end up speaking to someone, they were like, no, this has gone on too long. We'll need to admit you, and we'll need to fix it properly, which was good. They did end up fixing me, and I feel fantastic now. I didn't as much then. And also you don't feel fantastic all the time. It's just, I've gotten some tools now that help me actually make things make sense. So that's, and also the right type of medication.
Fucking huge, by the way. That is huge.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was a big thing that had to happen. And I think also in some sense there was that, you know, that there's always that persistent feeling, especially among men, right? I'm not saying, oh, the plight of man, definitely not, but just that kind of thing that you can't tell people because you're a man, so you should just fix it, you know? And I think I was kind of stuck in that in my own head, even though that's not something that I personally believe. It's just the stereotype is ingrained inside of your brain, you know, and it just kind of went that way.
Absolutely.
So that was unfortunate, but got through the other side, and now I'm super open to talk about it, and I like talking about it with people because there's a lot of people that struggle with this kind of thing, and they're afraid to admit it or afraid to look for help and all that kind of shit. So yeah, broad strokes, that's what went on between us not releasing an album a year later and ending up 3 years later. Getting into the finer details, the lyrics in a big sense became a character sketch of my time in the mental facility, people I saw there, just kind of confronting myself. All of that became the lyrical inspiration and foundation of what this album would become later. So there was music and stuff, and not all the music was recorded yet. You know, when I came out, I was like, now I suddenly have these ideas. Suddenly I have lyrics for songs, and we haven't written those songs yet. So then we got cracking on making those happen. So I guess if I had to give the album a theme, it would be being lost inside of mental health crisis and just kind of figuring the way out of it again.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That's not exactly the narrative that the album sets up, right? I mean, if you take a look at Elektrik Ram from front to back, you start with Hillbilly Fight Song and you know, now I don't give a fuck about the mess I made, right? And you end with I Wish I Was Dead in Chemically Humanized. So this is the journey.
Yes. So being but I always like to I have a thing for I really like storytelling, right? And the happy ending is not the greatest place to stop a story. It's a classic, but it just doesn't work. So these things all happened as they happened, as I went through them. But the narrative arc was more about how it started and to the peak where I was at my worst, not all the way through to getting better, if you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
Like I stopped the story halfway through, but that was kind of the point, is to get to that sense, right? And it's not because a lot of it's really intense. And I've had some people that have sampled the album, obviously, and some friends that have heard the music and whatnot. Then again, they reach out and they're like, "Are you all right? You know, can we? What can we do to help?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine now."
Right.
I really wasn't for a while, but right now I'm good. It was just like, this is how we managed to put the story together.
Okay. So this was like the end of 2021 going into 2022. This was all going on?
Yes.
Okay.
And there were a lot of things that happened in that time. I mean, we had some personnel shifts and stuff like that, which is fine. There was a bit where it was not fine, and everyone was a bit angry at each other, which is fair enough. I understand why people didn't want to contribute at that point. Couldn't see it at that point, but only after.
Right.
But we're all tight and buds now again, and everything's fine, you know, and everyone has their credits where they did work on the album and all that kind of stuff. But for a little while, we were a bit angry at each other. And that also, I think, contributed to the overall feeling of the thing, because it was just a constant, like a maelstrom. It was like we were caught in a, it was intense. But I think that ended up making the songs sound the way they do and come out the way they did, which I'm quite happy about.
Certainly part of it. What songs you mentioned songs with lyrics first. I'm just interested to know what songs had the lyrics before they had music.
Interestingly enough, songs that have had lyrics first was Chemically Humanized.
Okay.
As well as Rave to the Grave. And let me think what was recorded the other way around. Morning Wood as well. All three of those had the lyrics written before the songs happened, right? But they also all had the lyrics written at the same time. And actually most of the album had the lyrics written at the same time. It was in that little stretch. But those were the ones the music didn't exist for yet, you know? And we kind of came out and there was just for some of those songs, like Chemically Humanized couldn't have sounded another way than it ended up sounding, you know? So I had these lyrics and I'd written them down. And then the one day I was trying to figure out, and I had these riffs in mind and everything was, going standard RUFF MAJIK vibes, I guess. And it just didn't work until we did the nice soft little finger pick thing, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's the sound. That's what we're going for with this song.
Okay. I mean, one of several departures kind of on the record, right? I mean, I guess Devil's Cattle, you know, branched out a lot, I think, for you guys, and did a lot of work in kind of just, you know, marking out new territory for the band. And I feel like Elektrik Ram kind of follows that pattern, goes to some different places, some new places as well, which is, you know, pretty exciting actually about it. But you know, there is sort of the, you know, I'm thinking of Shangri-La Incorporated, Cement Brain, and so on. Even Morning Wood, kind of a mid-paced track, and the lyrics very clever. I was guessing that was lyrics first, but sort of at the same time, there's this mental health crisis going on with you personally, and as kind of the spearhead of the band, right? Obviously, there goes the band, right? So at the same time, you have songs like Rave to the Grave, which is kind of just a blast. You have a love song. You have She's Still a Goth. And I feel like even Delirium Tremors kind of takes the blame in a way that is that is generous, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
So, you know, it's I feel like it's not just anxiety, depression. It's not just this severe emotion.
So that's the thing, though, right? I don't know how deep you want to get into these, because I told Warren this is the first time ever, and it will probably be one of the only times ever, that RUFF MAJIK will give a proper interview and actually tell you what things are about. You know, otherwise you're just gonna have to kind of guess. But this is the first time I've said, yeah, I'm keen to talk about this kind of stuff. But yeah, on that point,
you know what? I appreciate that.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
But on that point, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the most severe. It's not just the depression or the anxiety or the PTSD speaking, but because that's not how mental health works. You've got peaks and troughs all the time. You know, it ebbs and flows. And that's kind of how it played out even when I was writing the lyrics. Sometimes it's really intense, but sometimes you have that quick triumphant moment because of the stupidest shit. You manage to wake up and actually make your bed, and then your mind's like, woo, we got one. We win. You know? That kind of vibe.
Right. So, okay. Well, that's like, let's say maybe that's the turnaround between the first verse of the title track, first verse of Elektrik Ram, and the second verse of Elektrik Ram in the lyrics, you know, going from the second coming, I've come to lay waste, right? Like, you know,
yes,
going into that.
It's exactly that.
There you go.
That's exactly the point. It's going from being on the deathbed, you know, everything's the worst it could possibly be, and then the return where you're like, nah, okay, I'm on top of it. Right. I got it down. But not forever, you know, just for that little stretch of that song. You had it down for those couple of minutes. You're like, hey, we're doing it. And then it's gone again.
Right. Oh, Queen of the Gorgons, I took as a love song as well.
That is actually a love song. So that is very specifically. Did you want to get into the songs one at a time? Because we can. I can give you.
Yeah, but I'm going out of order. But yeah, I kind of was going to cover.
That's fair enough. So Queen of the Gorgons is also a love song. Very much connected to She's Still a Goth as well. So as all things, considering our music when it comes to romantic emotions, it's always about my wife. All the other guys in the band know that they're essentially the backing band for my love songs to my wife. But it's fine. It's fine. They're fine with it. Yeah. So Queen of the Gorgons is just you've never seen my wife, which, while it would be surprising if you had.
No.
No. That would be the weirdest thing ever. So that song is about her and taking some characteristics in mind, just personality wise, and also even like physical characteristics, right? So she got very, very curly hair, which where
serpentine
my
locks of hair.
serpentine, yeah. Oh, you know it. Fantastic. Yeah. She's got the green eyes as well. It's that whole thing, but also a lot just about her spirit and the way she is. And I guess that song was more of a being in awe of her as a person during the time I was being the worst version of myself. That's kind of how that came about. You know, it's like it's almost a worship song, but not entirely, but close. Right.
Which I think, I think that's probably that's kind of love, right? That's what love is, sort of.
It is.
Yeah.
To some degree. I mean, sometimes it sucks, sometimes it's fantastic. But yeah, that one. So there are a couple of ones on the album that do directly relate to that, which is also She's Still a Goth, as that same trend. It's a different angle, but it's got that Morning Wood as well. Another flip side of the coin. They all kind of directly relate to that same sentiment, but just with different vibes. Anyway, I don't want to rant too long. I kind of have to give you some space to ask some actual questions, right?
No, no,
not at all.
No, you don't. No, you can just. It's the fucking internet. It's not like we're gonna run out of time. No,
that is true. Actually, we could do just whatever we want.
Yeah. Anyway. So okay. So we've got love, we've got misery, we've got up, we've got down, we've got fast, we've got slow, we've got loud, we've got quiet. Spliced in all of that is this litany of related, sort of, almost in a pun kind of way, horror samples. You have I Wonder, what is it? I Wonder How It Ends at Chemically Humanized and various ghouls, and what is it? It's Darling, the only ghoul in the house is you, I think.
Yeah, that's right, at the start of Elektrik Ram as well.
There you go. So and so on. Tell me about what those do for you and why they're there.
So that was an interesting process, actually. I really love horror movies, always have, and it's like a comfort thing for me. You end up, I had a bad day, or I'm feeling all sorts of weird, and then you would want to watch something that calms you down, I guess. And I end up putting on some really ridiculous, over the top horror, or even like some old school stuff. I just like that kind of vibe. Yeah, it helps my mind relax. I don't know why. Something must have gone horribly wrong when I was a child, but
trauma but to be explored at a later time.
Actually, no. For interest sake, that was a thing when I was growing up. Like, I remember being like 7, I think, the first time I watched John Carpenter's Halloween, and that was due to my mom showing it to me. And she's not a negligent parent or anything like that. She was just like, in her mind, she's like, this is all made up. You couldn't possibly be scared of it. And I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But then, obviously, a bit later on, I was like, no, I'm terrified. This is the worst thing that could have ever happened. But that built on the love that I do now have for horror movies and that kind of comfort, know. But right from the get-go, it might have been a weird choice. But
it's a hell of a way to start.
Yeah, that's how it happened, The Shining as well. I think I saw The Shining the first time when I was 8, and it was really confusing because that's like psychological heavy horror, still that was it did some things to my mind, I think, but it's fine. The best things, I believe. So most of the samples from this album actually do come from one movie, interestingly enough, and it's The House on Haunted Hill.
Okay.
Right, which is really old. It stars Vincent Price.
I recognize Vincent Price's voice, of course. Yeah,
you got to. I mean, it's iconic. But alongside a cast of just a bunch of people, I had no idea who they were. But it's a really fun movie. Okay, fun is maybe a weird way to describe it. It's fun for me,
right?
But it's
horror
like
fun.
Horror fun. Yeah, and it's not grotesque horror. It's like Vincent Price is like the main character in this ensemble cast, and he's a really rich dude that rents a mansion for a weekend basically, and then it invites a bunch of people to the mansion that's supposedly haunted, and kind of just puts them through all sorts of hell, explaining that it's haunted. So he has ulterior motives all through the film, but you only realize that at the end. And also all through the film, him and his wife are in the weirdest relationship, just constantly trying to kill each other, that kind of vibe. But they're together and whatnot, but that's the whole premise of the film. All of those things are happening
right
as it's happening. And I watched that somewhere during the recovery period while we were still working on music. And just as I was watching it, these dialogue moments came by, and I was like, that perfectly describes this song just by chance. It's just it just happened as such. I was watching it, was like, oh wow, that's cool, I could save that for this song. And then a couple of minutes later I'm like, oh wow, no, hold on, this fits this song, you know. So it ended up being almost all samples just from that movie, just because somehow at that moment mentally it clicked for me. All these things just kind of fed into the vibe. Yeah, and that's how I ended up. So it was weird because I ended up having to get the movie, which is fine because it's in public domain and all that kind of jazz. So it wasn't hard to find it. And then rewatching it and just getting those little clips, you know, and cutting them and getting the sound, adding it to the music, you know. Yeah, it worked out well, but it took some doing.
Yeah, and it kind of, I mean, it you know, it's clever, right? You can hear how the samples fit with the songs, kind of on theme, and it kind of runs a thread through, at least
it does,
you know, through most of the record, except in Delirium Tremors, where you have, yes, it's my sort of thing, you know, right?
Yeah. So that happened in the weirdest way as well. Well, not weird, but it's a so it's a friend of mine. That's an actual voice note that he sent to me, that you're listening to, right? And what happened was, we were working on some tunes, and he's someone whose opinion I respect quite a lot. His name is Paul Joya. He is a South African musician, and he used to be in some pretty important South African punk bands. Most notable of which, if you would try to look them up, would be ATFN, or All This for Nothing, which is now also currently signed to Mongrel Records, and then the Slash Dogs as well. And those were guys that were doing a lot of work, and they were big in the punk and rock and roll scene when I was growing up. I mean, when I was still in high school, I was reading our local skate magazines, and I was like, oh, these are the guys. They're fantastic. And then, you know, years later, you end up actually meeting the guys and forming some sort of connection, and then you become tight, right? I ended up coming to a point where, like I said, he's one of the dudes that I respect his opinion on music heavily. Like, I, in high regards, above a lot of other people. So usually when I'm working on new music, I send it out to a bunch of people, and I'm like, what do you think about this? Well, how do you feel about this? What is this doing for you, right? And with this album, it was different in the sense that only some people heard it. I was a lot more selfish with the sound, because my mind kind of already knew where I was going with it. I didn't really need opinions on it. But the one track that was weird for me, as it was happening, was Delirium Tremors, because there's a lot of things happening in Delirium Tremors, and at that time I didn't feel like I was being entirely what would you call it? I didn't feel like I would be able to be honest with myself about the song, you know? So I needed some extra outside opinion, and I sent that through to Paul, and what I did beforehand is I was like, listen, man, I know we've done this kind of vibe before or whatever, but would you mind listening to a song, giving me your honest opinion about it? And without any prompt whatsoever, that sound is the voice note I got back from him, which was super weird because I was at that time quite delirious.
Right.
So I got this voice note back, and
Brilliant.
it was the
Yes.
strangest thing I've ever heard, but also completely hilarious. Like I think I spent a good week laughing at that. And then he sent back his notes on the song because it was still working, whatnot. And at the end of the conversation, I just told him, I hope you know you've made the album. You are the sound sample.
Special guest appearance.
Yeah. You are the guy that's doing that. And he is a special guest appearance. I mean, he's listed on the credits as doing the voice for that bit, you know, and it was just random. Sorry, I'm just stepping out into the dark for a second.
No worries. We're on the move.
Well, you can sort of still steal my thing. But yeah, so that's kind of how that went down.
Okay. It's a brilliant voicemail, I guess, right? If that's what it, you know. But yeah, it's a high flying world of riff management. And the CEO of RiffCon in Philadelphia. I mean, he nails it. He goes for it. It's gloriously cynical, and I love it.
And you know what's weird about it is it's like one take. Like he sent that back to me
right,
like 3 minutes after I sent him the message, and that's just like that was off the top of his head. That's what was going on in his head just at that moment. And it was so fantastic. It was just a snapshot of a person.
I want it to be like a flash animation from 2002. You know, like
that would be so sick.
I want that look of the guy sitting at the desk, and he's like, "We'll get Deborah from accounts on it." Right? Like it's oh my god, it's so good. There is in Delirium Tremors, not to stay on one song forever, but there's like a high pitch, almost like a ting kind of sound in there. What is it?
That's a triangle, man.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Triangle out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was on purpose at the point. I mean, to keep with the theme of the song. Do you know what delirium tremens are? Not tremors, tremens. Right. Cool. So that was by the time I was admitted into the psych ward or whatever. They had me on watch for that because they were like, you've just come off being basically a full-blown alcoholic, and now you have to quit cold turkey and get this stuff going. So I was going through that kind of thing, and you know, hallucinating a bit, being weird in general, seeing people drink milk in interviews. You know, it was strange.
Strange times.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where thematically where that song sprung from. It's where my head was at that moment. And the only way I could see it making sense musically was to add some strange noises in places where you don't want to have those noises, you know, not to overthrow the thing, you know, it's rhythmic and it sticks everywhere, but there's just like this, it's annoying, you know, I'm aware it's annoying. It just comes through as like, and then you're like,
yeah, it's
why?
It's
why is that fucking
right
there?
on the top, right? Frequency wise, it's right up there. Yeah.
That's the point.
There you go. Okay, triangle. I was like, listening to the records, what the fuck? Like, is it an error in the file? No, it's now I know.
No.
Triangle.
Okay. It's proper on purpose triangle.
All right. Well, okay. Well, that the triangle there then, and you've got the tambourine in Cement Brain, and all these other sort of details in the recording. The more you dig, the more you find, kind of is how I'm finding it to be. Tell me about recording. Tell me like the actual, when you get to it and you're putting these songs down and you're like, okay, well, now I need a fucking triangle because this is happening. So, I guess building these songs up from the kind of skeletons to the finished versions. Take me through some of that if you can.
So it happened in an interesting fashion because it was recorded in a bunch of different sessions at a bunch of different places. which I think contributes to the kind of schizophrenic feeling of the whole thing. But it happened as such where some of the songs we had most of the guitars and everything down and we recorded it at one spot, and then we decided no, but it needs a different type of lead, or now it needs a synth and that kind of thing. So primarily it happened in 3 different spaces, which was Pariah Studios, used to be Backline Studios, where we did Devil's Kettle along with Effort. We did a lot of work there. We did a lot of work at Studio Del Bez, which is like the home space studio of our guitarist Bez. We did it over there, and then other bits at Atomic Studios, which is not super far from my house, probably like a 15-minute drive, but technically in a different town, which is owned by the label. And we had different collaborators for all of these different bits, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the weird and quirky sounds that went into it was me and Bez just doing all sorts of strange stuff, and then me and Matthew Fink from Atomic Studios. We spend a lot of time just digging into getting weird with layers and whatnot, because essentially what was weird is some of it was already recorded by the time we were at Atomic Studios, and then I'd be sitting there and we'd be listening to it, and I'd be like, you know what this needs? It really just needs us to shake a whole box full of percussion instruments. Like not you know, it's not one individual at a time. It's just like a big plastic box, and we just need to go like, and that would be the sound.
I can see it. Yep.
And Matt was the exact right person to be dealing with in that instance, because he was just like, you know what, I have that box. It's in the back room. Let's go shake it in front of the mic. And then sometimes it'd be like a situation of I'm listening to this and I'm like, what it really needs is just like as a background noise, just like a detuned piano. That's all we need. Mm-hmm. We just need something to go plonk in the background. That's all. And he helped me a lot with masterminding a lot of that shit. And then, like I said, Bez as well. There was a lot of little cool nuanced noises and things that we were able to contribute to the album through little just bits and pieces. Just basically a lot of people humoring my mental breakdown at the time.
Right.
That's what happened. A lot of people were just like, this is absolutely insane, but you know what? We'll do it. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Let's go for it. Yeah. Here's the box. Right. Okay. Well, I think, you mentioned the schizophrenic feel of the record, right? And it's true. It's all over the place. It's fucking everywhere. But I think some of the reason it works so well across the whole arc is the structures are super solid, right? I think a couple songs, looking at them, are verse, chorus, done, right? I think that's She's Still a Goth. I know that's Morningwood. And they're
Morningwood. Rave to the Grave also. No, actually that one breaks up with it a bit, but it's got that kind of vibe. It's also some of the shortest music I've ever written in my life, which is usually which is weird, especially because of the area of music we find ourselves in. And let's be real about it, like stoner rock, psychedelic music, all that kind of stuff, doom for that matter. It's a meandering type of music where people it's like glorified jam bands, and I've been into that. I've always been into that. This is the first time ever we've written songs where I'm just like, this song is done.
Right.
Like it would be fun to add some things to it maybe, but that's just, it doesn't serve the song at all. It would just be like some extra things, and that just doesn't make sense.
I feel like, yes. So what you have is kind of a duality there, right? Because you have, I'm going to shake the box of percussion instruments, alongside structure, on top of structures that are in and out, bang, bang through the whole record before you know it, almost. So,
but it's not a duality though. That's the point. It's all just to serve the song at hand. That's what I'm saying. That random triangle in Delirium Tremors, I mean, it could have not been there, but it was supposed to be there, Right. So all of the experimentation and little bits and pieces that we added on, it was all with very clear intent is the thing. So nothing was accidentally just added, or we were like, now we need a little bit of noisy whatever. It just, they were supposed to be where they were supposed to be, and the songs were supposed to be as long or short as they were supposed to be.
Not
in my mind, at least.
Not haphazard.
Not haphazard.
And it doesn't sound haphazard. I mean, you know, it doesn't sound.
Well, I'm glad, because I was wondering about that.
No, I mean, that's why it works. That's what I'm saying is because it doesn't sound like it's just random bullshit you threw in front of a microphone. Right?
No, it's just, well, but I mean, in technical sense, it is just random bullshit, I guess, because it's a bunch of random bullshit.
It's purposeful bullshit.
No, it's purposeful, but yes, but there is actually random bullshit. There's weird sounds on there that come from, you know, just like a knock on a pipe or whatever. That's random. It's a random bullshit, but it's, you know, it did what it was supposed to do for the purpose.
Right. Okay. Delirium Tremors, the sort of desperation of sobriety.
Yes,
there is palpable. I see that tying into Shangri-La Incorporated, which is a little.
Yes. So Shangri-La is one of the more, what I would call like semi-esoteric songs, where the lyrics aren't just because this album as well, I feel like it's some of my most straightforward lyrics ever, you know. Just kind of has that vibe. Oh wait, give me a second while I'm doing weird jumping around of my mental state. Look at my new dog.
Oh, hey,
she's so cute.
Hi, doggy.
Yeah, she's called Frida, and she doesn't care for you, apparently.
Well, I'm not very exciting. Hi, Frida, baby. Yeah,
no, she's really cool. I just saw her, and I thought you should see her as well. Anyway,
gorgeous. Congratulations. How long have you had her?
Not very long. I think we're going on our 4th week now. It's about a month. So she's still a puppy.
How old is she?
Around about 4 weeks, I think. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, no, she's very cool. She's actually super chilled for a puppy. It's strange. We've never seen. I've never had a puppy that's just as chilled. She doesn't even really bark. She does sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes she's absolute chaos. But other times,
yeah,
exactly. But obviously, it has happened. Right. But it's weird. She's chill most of the time, so that's quite cool.
She's a baby. They need sleep. You know, they need sleep. So, you were talking about Shangri-La.
Yes, Shangri-La Incorporated. So that was a particular weird space I was in at the time. Actually recorded the vocals and lyrics to that on my birthday, and I still recorded those with effort, right?
Okay.
Oh, and Shangri-La is also one of the only songs that another collaborator of ours, Cowboy Van, or as some people know him as Wally, he also did the music video for All You Need Is Speed.
Okay.
He sent me the initial instrumental tracks to Shangri-La Incorporated, or what became the instrumental track, somewhere during lockdown, actually, like all the way back to 2020. And as my mental state declined, I kind of sat there with the file and chopped up the little pieces into something that my mind wanted to hear at the time, right?
Okay.
So it was weird. It was almost like working with samples at that point. Like I separated the rhythm, percussion tracks and stuff, and I made it into all sorts of little pieces that flowed in a certain thing, and then ended up also adding some guitar over it until it took a basic shape. So that was one of the weirder ones to record, and it's also the one with the box full of percussion in it.
Right.
Okay. Right. So right as it goes into that sort of climax psychedelic freak out, you'll hear as it comes in, there's like a sound, like a shook, and that's where that box comes in. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Very good.
So it came around that time. So yeah, it was very connected to that issue of sobriety, or the yearning for sobriety, I think, to a certain extent. But it was also a weird thing of it was a mental, like, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's like a protesty type of vibe, because that's not at all what it is. But it was me being angry at the idea of always being on call and having to contribute to what people want me to contribute to, right? So
what do you mean?
Let's say, like, I'm trying to get to the right words of it. Like this interview tonight, right? I really love being here, so don't take that as a slight. But that kind of idea was like, it was all encompassing in my head at some point, where I felt I need to do everything all the time forever. I need to be on point with making sure everything happens for, like, in social media. I need to make sure we get our stream counts up. I need to make sure that I'm actually connecting with fans of the music, but also connecting with family and all that kind of thing, right? And it was a warped perception in my mind, because none of that was necessary to the degree that I assumed it was necessary, right? But that warped perception made for the lyrics in that time, kind of where it's like, what did I call it in the lyrics? It was build your towers
on the sweat of my back. Yeah, make your money.
That was that was the vibe. So I was feeling, at the point, it felt like I had to basically destroy myself for other people to be able to do things as they wanted to do things. Which, I know it sounds weird, but that's what it was.
No, I mean, it does have that is kind of a protest vibe then, right? Even if it's not like political necessarily.
Yeah, I guess it's what, I don't know what to call it exactly, but it's being angry at the at that point, what I thought was the the, what is that word again? The
exploitation
accepted norm of something. No, like there's an accepted norm. There's a word for it. It's vaguely French, probably. I don't know. I'll get to it. But it's just, I felt that was the world as a whole at some point. So I was trying to be angry at that, whilst being angry at myself.
Right.
It's a weird combo of things to do.
Right. It's anger going that way, anger going that way. Yeah.
Yep.
That's how they get you. I can see where that would weigh you down. A song about drugs with a clever name, and it does have a clever name. Nicely done. Full speed in the lyrics. You mentioned before, all you need is speed. It's not the first time this has come up. Talk about drugs.
Right. So, I mean, the song really, honestly, in the title, gets down to what it's about. That's the thing, right? So I was writing, you know what a title is that was my working title. I had it saved on a note on my phone, and I was like, you know what, this is a song about drugs. And that was like, but it needs a clever title. That was the whole thing.
Of course. Yes.
And then at some point I looked at it again, and I was like, oh no, hold on. That is the actual title.
That is the clever title. Yes.
That is what it's supposed to be. But yeah, that was another deep dig into what things were like for a little while, mainly because a lot of it was doing things to numb whatever the fuck was going on. And like I said earlier, self-medicating, but self-medicating in all the wrong ways. Right. Which didn't, like, I try not to mention this kind of stuff in online, just because you don't know who checks it out and what the kind of influences are. But I mean, it starts at booze, it doesn't end at booze, that kind of vibe. And like whole heaps of that. And kind of at the same time, the paranoia my mind was going through, but also that was brought on by a lot of these substances, right? So like with the line where it goes, "Are you all in?" Right? Which is yeah. So it starts with like a slight gambling reference because you would find yourself playing cards one night, trying to win. I don't know what it is you're trying to win, and then, but then the reference to, "Are you in on the joke though?" Right? So that's the thing, because it always felt like everyone else was in on the joke, just a little bit, and you're just like outside and you're chuckling along, but you're not sure what we're chuckling at. It had that kind of vibe,
Mm-hmm.
So that's the essence of the song. It was trying to numb things and being at the same time super paranoid and suspicious of everyone around me at all times, and also being a bit self-defeatist, right? So I'm like, I've already made these statements. I've already been angry. That's the thing about, I can't swallow my pride, because I've gotten up to that point where I've made it everyone else's problem, but being super self-righteous about it. So if I have to go back now, I'm going to look like a fool, which would have been better, and in the end that helped out a lot. It was being able to go back and being like, "No, listen, I'm sorry, I was being a horrible human at that point in my life." But but lyrically, or that feeling that I had when this was made up was that I had to be the only person that could possibly be right, but also at the same time doubting yourself as it's happening. It's a weird combination of things. But like I said, these things exist simultaneously in your head.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about you here, sir.
No. Listen, I'm not qualified to give out therapy, Other people need to be paid for that.
That's fine. Well, tell me about building that song. Actually, you know what? You mentioned effort, I don't know, a little bit ago. How actually involved in the record was he?
So there's a lot of songs he was quite involved in, a lot of the stuff. So for Song About Drugs, for instance, he did the tracking of the music was done in his studio and was done by him. But he, at that point, sorry, dropped my phone, got it back. At that point, he didn't want to play on the record itself, or he had already done some songs, but he was understandably fed up at some point, so he didn't want to do that song specifically. And actually, initially, he was slated to sing it. So there's a demo version that exists somewhere where there are recorded vocals of him doing the lyrics, but later on we adjusted it, not because of any weird reasons. It was just like, it felt like that was the right way to go about it at the time. So he was involved in a lot of tracking, even a lot of pre-tracking. When we were working on songs and we didn't exactly know where they were going, a lot of the basic structures were fleshed out in his studio, along with him, even playing guitar and a lot of the stuff as well. There was a lot of contributions still, which is good because I still say till today is one of the best musicians I think I've ever worked with or witnessed working. It's just that he's got also a very peculiar way of thinking about things, which is right up my alley. It just, things just fit in a way that you wouldn't imagine them fitting if he hadn't suggested them fitting in that way.
I think you can hear that on The Devil's Cattle. Definitely. I mean, the sort of the way your two styles complemented each other there. For sure.
And so this one, I think, ended up being more of a departure away from The Devil's Cattle and more departure away from his style, in a sense that it became more, I don't know what to call it. I mean, I'm waiting to see what you think it's called, but it's got like a experimentalism about it. The whole of the album, just it became a thing where everything needs to be its own thing. I don't even really think that two songs on the album feel like the same genre to me. They are, I mean, obviously, but in my mind, they're all separated into a thing on their own, like congruent altogether, I guess, but each one was its own individual decision in the end, I guess. I don't know. It's just weird. I've been trying to wrap my head around it.
I think you can hear that though. I mean, there are you definitely have your like fast go, very rough magic rock songs, right? Electric Ram,
yeah,
is one. Even Hillbilly Fight Song.
Yeah.
Amid all that wonderful bluster. So, okay, I forgot. I lost my train of thought now. But
I'm sorry.
Actually, no. Something else. Another point I wanted to make is that's something else that I think the samples do well is tie together those, you know, those this song's gonna go here, and then this song's gonna go over here, and this song, you know, the samples kind of bring that all into the same context.
Yes, exactly.
Even more so now that I know it's all from almost all from one movie.
Almost all from the one place.
Yeah, so that's good. Works on multiple levels. I think. Is there anything else you want to say about the record? Is there anything we haven't talked about?
I don't know. It's weird. I've been struggling to follow the conversation as we went along. I mean, I was talking a lot, but I lose my train of thought quite quickly. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything very specifically. I've had a lot of thoughts about it over time, like as we were finishing it up and as we were putting it out to people. I think my biggest thing is I've been wondering how it would be received, I guess, by the general public or by RUFF MAJIK fans or just people in general. Not in a way that I want people to be super keen on it, you know? I mean, obviously, I wouldn't lie. It would be sick if everybody enjoys the record I made.
Right.
It would be weird if I said the opposite of that.
That is like the weirdest fucking thing, right? It's like you're not allowed to say, like, I want people to like my record.
No, I want people to like my record, 100%.
Of course you want people to like a fucking record. Otherwise, why would you make a record and put it out for people to hear it? That is a whole fucking thing. And it's a genre thing. It's
I know. It's for real.
Underground stoner rock fucking thing. Nobody wants to make any money and nobody wants anybody to like their music. God forbid any of us should quit a fucking job, right? God forbid anyone should be able to do this for a living. Ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's a fucking sticking point.
No, fair enough. I'm with you there. I think the only time in history that it actually ever happened that somebody really didn't want someone to like their record was probably when Captain Beefheart did Trout Mask Replica, because my God, that could not have been a conscious decision to sell albums.
Right. I feel like Mike Patton has a couple of those albums too, where he's
as well. Yeah. But listen, I'm a very big fan of him, and you know, anything Mr. Bungle's ever done is very, very close to my heart. But anyway, what I was trying to say was, obviously I do want people to like my record, but at the same time I knew going into it that certain people, especially in the circles we've moved around in until thus far, would dislike it, or would at least dislike up to, let's say, 60% of it, because it's weird in the sense that I think only a few bands sound weird when they make coherent songs, you know? And I'm not saying we've never been coherent before, but we've always been a bit over the top and silly and intense with stuff that we do. And this is the first time we've made songs where I'm like, oh, this song sounds like a single, you know? And then I make another song and I'm like, oh, this also somehow sounds like a single.
They all do. It's the first time they all do. You could do every song on that record as a single. And I'll go on further, you should.
I know you've said this. I've seen it.
That is genuine. That is genuinely how I feel about it. There is not one song on that album that doesn't work as a single.
I would have loved doing it that way, but you know, at some point we need to tease a vinyl and sell it. And
I'm not saying
the system is just broken.
I'm not saying only put out singles. I'm saying, I don't know, do a video or some shit, whatever.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but so that was.
I'm saying every song deserves to be highlighted. There is not a dud in the bunch. is what I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. But what was I saying? Is what I'm wondering.
I don't know.
What I was saying
like 20 minutes ago. Who can remember?
It was weird for me. It's weird in the sense of RUFF MAJIK that we don't do singles. Not usually. It's not our thing, really. You know, maybe in the Devil's Cattle more so, but
you've done 3 already
still,
for this record. Really, what are you talking about? You put out She's Still a Goth last fall.
No, you know what I'm saying though. There's a difference between what people in an industry call a single as just releasing a song to promote an album, which is what it is, or like a
7-inch.
Yeah,
right? Just like a standalone. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it was weird. It was weird as it was happening, and then I've just been the whole time. And the weird thing, like, it's not weird. So the other day, Warren messaged me and he said, "Listen, we got I wouldn't say who, obviously, it doesn't matter, honestly, but we got some feedback from a guy that usually does review your albums and he, like a fan and whatnot. And he said, doesn't like the album at all. He's not going to touch it or he won't review it. And Warren was like, well, that's annoying. Fuck that guy. And I was like, no, honestly, this kind of gets me at ease because I was waiting for this to happen. I was waiting for someone to be like, that's not real RUFF MAJIK. It's been at the back of my mind this whole time. If someone's just going to be like, no, that sucks. I don't like that. And I'm fine with that. I am fine with people disliking it. I want people to like it, but I'm fine with the idea of people disliking it. And I was expecting it from a certain group of people, you know? So
who?
I'm not expecting people in general to dislike it, but no. Don't push me in. Don't push me in that direction. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I guess I like to think that, like, if you're already somebody who's like digging into an underground scene, who is sort of willing to make the commitment to look, to get music from somewhere other than the radio in your fucking gym or whatever it is, there's a certain amount of open-mindedness that goes along with that. But now that I say that out loud, it sounds incredibly stupid and naive. So
yeah, I was just about to say, I think you're entirely wrong, actually.
And then when you take into account the internet and the fact that people just say random cruel shit all the time, I could see where maybe that would be a concern.
Yeah. So not so much a concern, just something I think I've been more curious about that aspect more than anything else. And what you were just saying about the general open-mindedness or whatever, I don't think when it comes down to underground bands that's generally the case. I think there's almost a unspoken contractual agreement between a band and people that start listening to them at an underground phase to just kind of keep making the same noise because that's what people want to hear, right? And I mean that in the weirdest way, but I'm quite honest about it, right? So in the sense of I've got examples. I know when The Sword released their last album, which was a weird departure in the sense of the type of grindy riffs and stuff that they had, right?
Right.
A lot of negative comments and stuff about that online. There were good reviews, there were bad reviews, but there was a lot of negativity just in general from people that held them to a high regard. Now, I think partially that's because of the thing I'm saying is that people expect this band that they found and didn't know other people or didn't want other people to know about necessarily. They wanted that band to keep sounding that way, and that's one example. There's a couple of times that has happened, and I have friends with these opinions. I mean, we move around the scene where a lot of people have these opinions, where they're like, it's weird. I don't know how to explain it exactly. Now, you want the gnarliest possible sounding thing if you're looking at a really heavy stoner rock record, because that's kind of the point, though. That's the genre. I get it. But now this time we're doing it, and I'm like, but that's not the genre. I mean, it is if that's what we were going for, but that's not what we ended up making, and that it is what it is, you know.
Right.
So in that regard, I was curious. I was interested to see what people are going to think about it. How's it going to go down? And like I said, we've got some positive feedback, a lot of positive feedback, which is great so far from the people that have sampled it. And we've got, I'd say, an equal amount of feedback from people that are like, don't get it. It's not my vibe, you know? And that's fine. That's what it's essentially, I think, in my head, a whole part of me wants everyone to like it, obviously.
Of course.
But there's a part of me that would feel like it wasn't completely right if some people weren't angry or not unhappy with the way we ended up doing it. Yeah.
How, now that you have these songs as kind of a document of that time in your life, how do you feel about it?
I really like it in the sense that it does specifically document what was going on, right? And even musically, a lot of the things as they happened after and whatnot made more sense to me at that point than anything else. If I had to sit down and write and record it now, that it wouldn't have sounded at all like that. Might have ended up taking a lot less risks and doing just a more standard vibe, which probably would have been fun too, but I don't know. I feel it came out exactly how it was supposed to come out, you know? It sounds how it should sound, and looking back at it or listening back at it, it is what it's supposed to be, you know? It couldn't be any other way, otherwise I would have had to I wouldn't have released any of the songs. We would have started from scratch and released a new album instead, because it wouldn't have made sense to try and change what they were at the point.
Fair enough. Well, it's going to knock their socks off in Budapest. I will say that.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Johni, I'm going to let you go. I'm actually going to stop the recording, but before I do, thank you again for the time. I know you have an evening to get to, and I'll let you get to it. So thank you, and congratulations. I mean, I feel like, I don't know another way to say it. It's a really fucking brave record. Not only for sort of the theme, but I think like you were talking about the risks you take in sort of, adding what needs to be in the song. I feel like is yeah. It's a gorgeous thing. I mean,
thanks for having me, and thanks for being interested, man. You've been there from long ago. You've been invested in this band before I was invested in this band. I feel, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording, and thank you again, and don't hang up just yet. Here we go.